الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي، ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. Okay, so this is our second session on these questions about Dr. Javed Ansari's critique of capitalism. We basically set the context for this in the last session, and that context is very important to understand this and if there are any following sessions. So he cites two countries that, in his view, revolted against capitalism. So I tried to clarify in the previous video that that's not how he doesn't cite it. I don't think he believes that they revolted against capitalism as such. Iranian revolution was against the Shah, and that revolution was against his subjugation to American imperialism. And ulama has been struggling against the non-Islamic regimes in Iran for 100 years. So they are anti-imperialism, and to the extent they are anti-imperialism, they are anti-capitalism as well. And because it's an Islamic revolution, it is by definition anti-capitalist. But that doesn't mean that they explicitly or they consciously and they do consciously, Iranian ulama, especially Imam Khomeini and his followers, consciously thought of their revolution as anti-capitalist as well as anti-socialist. But that doesn't mean that their understanding of capitalism gels with Dr. Javed Ansari's critique of capitalism. Similarly, Afghanistan, Islamic State was formed there as a result of a long military struggle against foreign invasion. Okay, it so happened that that ulamas ultimately won that struggle when they formed a state. And when ulama form a state, they are naturally going to run it by Islamic principles, which are in contradiction with capitalism. But that doesn't mean that they understand capitalism consciously in a way in which Dr. Javed Ansari understands capitalism. Okay. And the most important part in this is that we should see Iran, and so that's how it is. So we live in a world order which is capitalist, which is dominated by America and its allies in a way which no world order has overwhelmingly dominated the world in human history. And there are other powers like Russia and China, which are also capitalist countries, but they are involved in intra-capitalist rivalry with America. And all other countries are subjugated to under the domination of this world order. And most countries obviously play by the rules. But the Islamic states, which include Iran and Afghanistan, as well as Yemen, to the extent that they are a state, they are states which aim to be independent and autonomous and in their internal and external affairs. And they aim to run those affairs by Islamic principles because they are Islamic states. But in this system, independence is very, whether it is on Islamic basis or non-Islamic basis, is very hard to achieve. So if these two countries, which are, Iran is a big country, but it still is alone in a struggle. In fact, straight after the revolution, the whole Muslim world was basically mobilized to fight a war against Iran in the name of Arab-Persian rivalry and then Sunni-Shia rivalry. And this mobilization happened obviously through American alliances in the Muslim world, especially through Saudi Arabia and other Gulf monarchies. So these two states are under are surrounded by a world order which is hegemonic, which is overwhelming. So their performance at whatever should be assessed in that context. Without context, you can't assess to assess an individual or a country or a society without taking into account their context. It's totally non-Islamic way of assessing things. That's why in Islamic fiqh, context is so important. Context is as important as the rulings or the commandment or the assessment or the direction or the ideal itself, because any command is to be understood in the context of a situation in which that command is to be implemented. So this is another way of saying that we have three Islamic states which are surrounded by al-Ḥarb, which are surrounded by world order, which is anti-Islamic, which is imperialistic, which doesn't allow independence. And in this context, Iran, and especially Iran, because Afghanistan is a new, relatively new Islamic state, it's 2-3 years old. This new one, Iran has resisted this pressure and this overwhelming situation and stood up to it and prospered in many fields in this environment. So Iran's performance, if you are the judge of Iran's performance, should be assessed on that basis. And this is a strange way of relating to Islamic State, which is a rare phenomena in this environment, trying to judge them rather than asking yourself what you are doing to help Iran, or what you are doing to establish Islamic State in your own country, uh, which is basically an American colony, an imperialist and capitalist colony. So that's the context in which all these 5 questions should be answered. So in this context, if you take the first question, performance internationally, how effectively are these states functioning in the international arena? Diplomacy. Iran, the Iranian diplomacy is first-class diplomacy. In this environment of which I talked about, of which I mentioned a moment ago, Iran has performed excellent. By any standard, Iran's diplomacy is excellent diplomacy, and Iran is diplomatically at good terms with China, Russia, big countries, India, Pakistan, um, now even Saudi Arabia and Turkey, and all the global South nations, for example, Brazil, African nations, South Africa. The only country that has, even with European countries, it has tried to establish good relationship. And it is only the intransigence of America which has stopped Iran from playing its full role. And Americans' conditions for establishing diplomatic relationship with Iran are basically unacceptable, and those relations are, forsaking your sovereignty, forsaking your independence, which Iran hasn't done it, and it will not do it. And those countries which do that, for example, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia and Egypt, and those countries, America has good relationship with those countries. But having a good relationship with America or any other country is not something good or bad in itself. You have diplomacy in order to preserve your sovereignty and your Islamic interest in the region and globally, and to make sure that an Islamic State is able to function in this very inconducive environment, very hostile environment in which it is encircled by imperialist powers, especially America and its allies. So in that sense, Iran has done very good diplomatically, recognition-wise, trade-wise. And even Iran complies with international norms, even though compliance with international norms is not something which is required in itself. It's just a strategic thing. At the end of the day, the purpose of Islamic State is to redefine those norms according to Islamic international principles, Islamic universal principles. And Iran has done this without any help from any Muslim countries, really. In fact, it has done so in the face of continuous hostility, not only from imperialist powers, but their lackeys in the Muslim world as well. So even if we are going to measure by any measure in the context in which Iran has operated, and we can say the same about Afghanistan as well, is doing very well. We can give Iran A+ on all that. Okay, so I'll stop here and we'll continue with the second question, inshallah, in the next session. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wa salli wa sallim ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala ali sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa barik wa sallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم طهر الحرمين الشريفين من رجز آل السعود وطهر البلاد الإسلامية من رجز الظلم والفسق. اللهم طهر المسجد الأقصى من رجز اليهود والأمريكان. اللهم طهر المسجد الأقصى من رجز أعوان الظلم والفسق. اللهم طهر البلاد الإسلامية من رجز أعوان الظلم والفسق. اللهم ارزقنا الإمام العادل والولي الكامل الذي يسير بنا على نهجك ولا على نهج أوليائك وعلى نهج نبيك مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى نهج آله وأصحابه وعلى نهج أعوانه وأنصاره يا رب العالمين. اللهم إنا نتوسل إليك بشهداء غزة وبشهداء لبنان وبشهداء اليمن وبشهداء إيران وبشهداء أفغانستان وبشهداء بدر وبشهداء أحد وبشهداء الإسلام من لدن آدم عليه السلام إلى يومنا هذا أن تقبل دعانا وتقبل دعانا. الله أن تقبل دعانا وأن تقبل رجانا وأن تغفر لنا وللمؤمنين والمسلمين والمسلمات. صلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وصحبه أزواجه وذريته برحمتك يا رب. آمين آمين يا رب.